What's up? Another week of doing this practice. For those that are new here, throughout the week, I like to collect different ideas or videos or thoughts or quotes that I stumble upon, where they could be on the internet or I take a picture of something. And then as I collect those thoughts throughout the week of stuff that I resonate with, and kind of once a week, which is today I go through them and then kind of elaborate or explain a bit more, or give them a little bit of color and flavor. Mostly for me, just to see what I've been drawn to and notice patterns, and more so just kind of spend some time with these things that resonate with me, because I think that's kind of anything that you resonate with is pretty powerful. It's kind of a pointer to something deeper, probably within yourself. And especially if there's kind of a domain or a circle of things that you are drawn to, then it's kind of worth spending a bit more time. So it's kind of a little time slot throughout the week that I carve out to go through them. So without further ado, this is the canvas for this week. And the main topic here is on attention. Then there's some like miscellaneous things right here, and then there's like one little story that draws that just talks about like artifacts of meaning, which I'll get into in a second. But main thing for me is just like collecting a lot of different thoughts on attention regarding like a business and a customer journey, attention with regards to devotion, attention combined with openness and empathy, attention combined with love and what like the connection between love and attention, which is also this video. Um so yeah, let's there's this let's start with this one, which is a graphic out of this book called, I believe it's called The Build by Tony Fadell, which is one of the legends in the world of design. He designed the iPod, the iPhone. He designed then after that the Nest thermostat and probably a lot more things, but he does have certainly a an eye for design, and design is really very linked to attention. But in his book, there's this graphic that kind of alludes to the vast difference between what the maker of the thing that is being sold or the product pays attention to, and then what the customer sees throughout their journey and their touch point. So if you don't know about a product that you end up buying, the first thing for you to end up purchasing the product is for you to be aware of it. Or said another way, you're never going to purchase something that you're not aware of because you don't know it exists. It's kind of pretty obvious. So that's kind of the awareness side of things. So like a social media post that you stumble upon in the For You page, or an ad that you stumble upon Instagram or TikTok, or you search for a thing, and there's like that product or that website pops up, or you read an article in the Wall Street Journal about the thing. So there's kind of different ways that you can be made aware of a product that you end up buying or not, but like aware of a product. And and there's kind of way more touch points in a customer journey. But what I kind of take away from this graph, or this funnel, if you want to call it that, is that everything is downstream of attention. Without the awareness, or without that social media post in the first place, or without that ad, none of the next steps can follow through. So it is paramount to pay attention to like how do you garner or draw attention to a customer if you want them to buy, like this first step is critical, absolutely critical. And I'm kind of going through it with my own product and brand, that I kind of noticed that if nobody knows about your product, it's as if it didn't exist. So there's Tony Fadell kind of alluding to the fact that the maker really just focuses on like the design of the product, the specs of it, the UI, the UX, how well it performs, etc. And the maker can make the mistake, typically does make the mistake, especially if they're kind of beginner or noob or early stage, to only focus on the product when there's like a lot more to it, especially, I guess, in my case, particularly speaking, just kind of letting people know that it exists. And then once the person knows that it exists, it's kind of education, how it works, give them a free trial, maybe testimonials for other people that kind of explain how the product works. And then there's kind of the offer, the delivery, like what if it's a physical product are you using, what postage service, USPS, do you have a warehouse, who are you partnering with? Then kind of then there's the like packaging and then the unboxing. Then the person sees the product. So this is kind of where you spent all of your time as a maker, like nailing this part. But then there's the onboarding, the packaging inserts, how-to videos. And after that, like how do you keep the user retained? So like how reliable is your product? How usable is your product? How much do you keep updating it? The person has a question, do you offer good customer support? Is there a knowledge base? Can you ask other people within the community? And then do they buy other stuff from your product lines? Do they give you a review? Like there's so much that goes into the customer journey. Um, and there's kind of two takeaways. One, a newbie maker only pays attention to the thing itself, which is really critical. But when understanding what the customer actually goes through, to buy and to keep using your product, it's like all of these steps that are more often than not taking into account for. But my main takeaway is like everything is downstream of awareness or attention. You can't have somebody ask for support or go through the onboarding or pat or unbox your product or watch hard how-to videos if they're not aware that the thing exists. So super critical point that I often have to get reminded of. So yeah, that this graphic's gold. Um, then with regards to attention, let's watch this clip. Let's now move into the deep connection between love and attention. I think this is from a movie. I don't know which one. It's once I guess once you see it, you can't unsee it. Um, if you really care about something, that is very similar to saying that um you're paying constant attention to it. A designer that cares about the design and feel of things is constantly pouring their attention into it and putting themselves in the customer's shoes and thinking about everything. If this person really loves Sacramento and the city, then they pay attention to everything about Sacramento, the people, the size, the streets, the vibe, what it's known for. Like I don't know anything about Sacramento really. I know very little things about it because I don't pay attention to it. I've never paid attention to it. I've never invested my time and energy and attention into knowing Sacramento. But this person clearly has. which is another way to say that they love Sacramento. Because why would you pay attention, a lot of attention to something that you don't love? It just never, that never checks out. I guess you could say like if you're on a job you don't like or whatnot, you have to pay attention to things that you don't like. But if you're paying attention to something constantly, say like separated from like any incentives, then you love it. Or another way to say it is you paid a lot of attention to it. That's why like kids, right, when they're little, what's the best way to love them? Is to pay a lot of attention to them. Um, so yeah, if you really care about your car, you pay a lot of attention to it. Um, so I guess there's this other related quote, which is like typically when evaluate like what business to start, you usually have a wedge as the person who starts the business by asking yourself the question, what do you care about that most people don't? Because that means you have an unfair advantage in that particular domain. You know a lot of things that other people don't just because you've spent a way more time studying it or paying attention to it. Um, so that could be a good wedge. Um, what else? Yeah, love is the quality of attention that we pay to things. And there's this kind of poet writer that I stumbled upon this week called Mary Oliver, which I think already passed away, but she was apparently a super legend. Again, I don't know much about her, but she's written a lot about attention. And she says on the topic of love, right? Attention is the beginning of devotion, which is, I don't know, hard to really grasp or put into words, but if you're like paying so much attention into something, like so zoned in or focused into it that you lose yourself in it, that you lose your sense of self or ego, and you're completely in it as if you were the thing that you're paying attention to, where you kind of get into this non-dual state. There's no subject paying attention to the object, but rather they are one and the same. You get to this like oneness flow state that I believe Mary Oliver is kind of alluding to right here. It reminds me of this story or this interview that um somebody made, or like Lewis Hamilton when he was in his prime with Mercedes, right before or as Max was peaking or starting to contend with him. And I don't know, this was maybe like 6 years ago or something. He, in a qualifier race in Abu Dhabi, he had this insane lap time that nobody could believe, that he actually did a lap around that course so fast. And everybody was shocked. He got pole position, etc. And then afterwards, they asked him, like, Lewis, how did you do that time? Like, what were you feeling? Or something along those lines. I may be butchering the exact interview quotes, but this is kind of the essence of the thing, which is he replied with, I was one with the car. I felt I was one with the car. He wasn't driving the car. He was the car. The car and him were the same thing. He wasn't thinking. He was so in the zone and in the moment that, like, in those peak performance states, because he's paying so much attention to it that nothing else exists, that he's not paying attention to anything else, then you get to this state of like godlike state, which I think is what Mary Oliver was alluding to with here with her word devotion. And then there's this other idea that I never really I never had really seen it this way, which is that if you are paying attention but you're not open, if your heart's not open as you're paying attention to somebody, say in this case you're like in a conversation and you're listening and you could be paying attention, but if your heart's not open, and Mary Oliver says that's only a report. You can like describe what happened. But if you combined that attention with an openness and empathy, that's where like attention really mattered. So I don't know. It's kind of an idea there that that's I think interesting and I think very true, right? Because you could be paying attention to something, but there's this other quality that's kind of needed for you to make a difference. Let me see what other related ideas are here. Yeah, you have to be open to being moved and transformed. Like there's a prerequisite to paying attention, but then you got to be open. It could be a love language, deep attention. Anywho, a lot on that topic. And then the other idea that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. That if you go by the same line that attention is the most valuable asset you have, then if you're giving or gifting your attention to anybody, that's kind of the highest form of a gift that you could give somebody. And then lastly on this topic, this person, which I forget where the source is from, you need the topography of attention. Attention. Oh, it's this is related to the idea that like if your brain circuits are dopamine flooded, then you don't get these like highs and lows anymore because everything's just kind of maxed out. And then this person says that you need a topography of attention, the flat moments, for the highs to feel memorable and meaningful. The idea that every time you open the app, you need to get the spike feels both disingenuous, the human experience, and a cheapening of the times when that's real and genuine. Similar to a song, right? A song has a mood to it, and I think it's a correct analogy to say that your attention or your way of living does have to have a topography. It's a great word. Yeah, topography, highs, lows, peaks, valleys, intensities to make stuff I don't know, more human. I think that is required. Anywho, a lot of thinking about this topic of attention for sure, as you can see. Um, let's see, where should we go next? Let's go through this one. Let's start with the basic fact that there's a basic human psychological need to collect articles of that have meaning. Art falls into this category. So a lot of like the collectible market falls into this category. So for example, a Pokemon card or an MLB collectible card are don't have inherent value, but the value that it has is derived from the meaning that everybody assigns it. And especially if this is a scarce asset, if you only have one or 10 of these things and everybody knows this story of Pokemon or the MLB, or a particular art movement or artist, then kind of you collect that and it's valuable, um, because you own a piece of that culture or that story. Despite the thing not having a lot of inherent value, and this Phil Mohun is pointing to the fact that this is a basic psychological need. It could also be like driven by markets and supply and demand. The fact that if there's a lot of people that know about this, then whoever owns the actual piece attains value. So there could be some market dynamics in that sense. And then there's so CryptoPunks, that collection alludes to the meaning of a cultural moment that points to like the digital world, the modern world we now live in. And CryptoPunks are like a collection that represent that. And if you want to kind of read this pause and read it, but I think so I this resonated with me, so I think it's valuable. So there's this guy that dumped his entire computer into Claude Code and recovered 5 Bitcoins, which I thought was an interesting story. Um, and then just miscellaneous things. Possession creates a new fear, the fear of losing the thing. Smart people are stupid in more complicated ways. I think it's true. Um, writing very clearly and having direction and clarity towards an idea. This is with regards to like building, is really valuable, and you express that through writing and English. So, for example, last week I spent an hour or actually more writing a long ass prompt that clearly detailed what I wanted to do, and so then kind of Codex did its thing, right? But the value is now more in that clarity and distillation of my imagination into a groundedness reality that is valuable. I kind of wrote that and I thought that was true. And then another thing that I think is true is this: no matter how isolated you are and how lonely you feel, if you do your work truly and conscientiously, unknown friends will come and seek you. I think this is with regards to like networking and how like modern networking, which is like going to events and meeting people and talking and like putting this mask on, doesn't have as much value compared to creating things that you think are cool and valuable and necessary, and then just sharing that with the world. If you do that, then the network, so X or Instagram, like existing networks, will select the people that most resonate with what you're building and have them be attracted to you. And so that's kind of the modern way of networking, which is what Carl Jung put in words a few years ago, and I think what Naval Ravikant in this video also alluded to. So, anywho, I won't play the video. If you want to watch it though, I'll share my Canvas link, which you can just go to in Sublime. Recommend Sublime for sure. But yeah, in any case, that's kind of the stuff that I've been thinking about. And now it's kind of cool for me to just go through these and then just like thread through all of these ideas are cool. And I hope somebody else finds it cool as well. And if not, that's okay. Anywho, have a great day. Peace out. Bye.